All right, this is Paul here, and I just wanted to show you where we're standing with the greenhouse right now. I've done a few videos on the greenhouse. One thing that I did is I actually put a shade cloth over it to keep the temperature down during the summer, to keep it from cooking too much. But so far, it is July. Actually, this is July 4th weekend. And in July, it's been a little cooler than normal for a summer. We've had days in the 90s, but this particular situation seems to work just fine. I've got a 100-watt Renogy solar panel on the top, and how I'm keeping this cool is it is supplying power to a charge controller right here, which the charge controller now has 14.4 volts. The solar panel is bringing in 1.37 amps at 18.55 to 17 volts. Now it's actually 6 o'clock local time, so we're getting towards the end of the day. Right now, it's pulling absolutely no wattage or anything from the battery. Actually, every once in a while, when the sun doesn't do it, it pulls just a little bit. And the fans right now is drawing 18 watts of power. So this is the input from the solar panel. This is basically what the battery is supplying, and this is what's going out to the fans. Now, what I've done is I basically have the solar panel power coming in here. It goes through this display here, and I've done the Anderson power poles, so if I decide I don't want the displays, I can take those apart and connect it. And it goes out into here, and it goes into the solar power input. Now the battery terminals, these go again into this display, this meter, and then it goes down to a small alarm panel battery that's mounted down there. And then the final connection goes out to the fans. And so from here, it runs in to this thermal resistor, and the thermal resistor cuts on at 100 degrees and cuts off at 15 degrees below that, which is 85. Here goes to this meter, which tells me how much power is being used right here. Again, our Anderson power poles are here, so I can take this, I can unhook this and take this meter out if I want to. And then this is going to go to the fans. I've got a 3,000 RPM fan here, a 2,000 RPM fan here, and these are taking the hot air that rises to the top of the greenhouse and blowing the air out. On this side over here, which is on the western side here, the sun is starting to go down and set. This one here is a 2,000 RPM CPU fan, and this is taking the air out. Down here on each side of the door, I have two 1,700 RPM fans that are bringing cooler air in from the bottom. I've got it on this side of the door, and I've got it on this side of the door here. So 1,700 RPM, 1,700 RPM, 1,700 RPM, 1,700 RPM. Now in the design phase, I decided to go ahead and buy these little connections, CPU fan splitters. So if the fan goes out, I can just easily replace it by just unhooking it, connecting a new one, and then connecting it back up. Now it's actually spiced into 10 gauge wire, which runs from here along the floor over here, and then goes up to the solar controller. Same thing with this fan here. I got the same connectors here, so I can add more fans or change them out if I need to. And then the same thing over here, and all that runs along here. Now inside here, I also basically moved some hydroponics systems out. So I've got 2 tomato plants that are being hydroponically grown. There's no soil in there, that's all hydroponics. I went onto Amazon and I bought a DC powered air pump, and this air pump basically turns on every 10 seconds and for 1 second, and then turns off for every 10 seconds. So anyway, it'll actually run overnight off the battery, and then the solar panel charges the batteries during the daytime. And as you can see now, The fans are drawing, taking the voltage of the battery down to 13.7 because the solar panel is not supplying. Actually, the solar panel is supplying 13.8 volts right now. So as the sun goes down, it goes behind the clouds. The voltage that the solar panel is supplying is going to drop, and eventually this is going to be running directly off the battery. Anyway, we've got a tomato plant here with a rather invasive cucumber plant. We've got a tomato plant here. Cucumber plants all over here. This right here is actually a tomato plant. We've got some carrots that are growing in here. And those are Better Boy tomatoes. Actually, you can see these right here. We've already harvested several of these tomatoes. We've got lots of them over here. And then over here we've got a Roma tomato plant. Actually, we've got several Roma tomato plants, and look at this. I've got one that's almost ready. In fact, that one is ready to harvest right there. A Roma tomato. I've got another one back in the back there that's almost ready to harvest. Now, what I've done is I have created interior hoop houses, and this will come in to help more in the winter time because I'll be able to basically put plastic and a hoop cloth and a frost cloth over this. So it'll be protected by the greenhouse a little bit, and then it'll be protected a lot more by a frost cloth and a second set of plastic. So it'll allow me a little bit more growing time in the fall and winter. Over on this side, now this right here is rather interesting. This is the tomato plant that honestly almost died. When I first built this was before the greenhouse was built, I made a bunch of tomato plants, a bunch of plants off of seeds. And anyway, we came in, we had a really warm spring. Things were really getting good. I jumped ahead of schedule, went ahead and planted outside, and then we had several frosts and cold temperatures one night after another after another. Most of the nights I caught covering them with a frost cloth and plastic, but there was one night that I did not, and everything in this bed died except for this one tomato plant. And this tomato plant is tiny, but look, it's producing lots of big tomatoes. Also, on this side of the greenhouse, the sun comes in from this direction right here. It runs basically from this way here. Now, this area here gets the full amount of sun. This tomato plant over here gets about 60% of the sun because it's under the shade cloth. In here, I've got a pepper plant, and this pepper plant seems to be doing pretty good. I don't see any pepper leaves or anything, so I don't know. This was actually a harvest. I actually grew these seeds from seeds inside of a grocery store bought pepper plant. I don't know if these are actually going to even flower or produce anything. I do have one pepper plant that did come from the grocery store that actually did produce a green pepper. So I don't know if it's just a matter of time, if these are not getting enough light or anything. I've got more carrot plants in here. I've got a few onions in here. Now over here, I actually have a cauliflower and a broccoli plant right here. I have not really done anything at all with maintaining these or anything. I've been overwhelmed this year. Now out here in this garden here, I had a ton of pepper plants. But anyway, I've got some more tomatoes right here. In fact, this tomato plant, this tomato, Better Boy tomato, is ready. This one here, we need to ripen this one up because this one's about to explode. We've got some bean plants here. We need to come out here and probably start picking these beans coming up pretty soon. We've got some Better Boy, some Roma tomatoes. We've got this right here is a green pepper plant, and it's flowering, so we'll probably see some peppers off this plant. This is the green pepper plant that was inside the greenhouse that I moved outside because it was getting too covered up. But anyway, Anyway, that's the green pepper that's producing green peppers. And all these basil plants in this bed here regrew from last year. They actually grew from last year because I did not plant any basil plants inside of this bin. But we do have some basil plants over here that I did actually plant. Got a lot of lettuce crops, didn't stay on top of it well enough to actually get rid of the flowering and stuff like that. Gonna eat the rest of this lettuce, probably pull these out, and maybe start seeds for planting lettuce in the fall. And I also got to get rid of some ants. Some ants are attacking this real good. So the seeds for all of these plants outside of the broccoli and cauliflower, all of these seeds were started from seeds directly, and outside the lettuce. The lettuce I planted later, but all of the tomatoes, the cucumber plants, the basil plants, all of those plants were planted in January, in the late January, inside a grow tent. So I used, basically a Spider Farmer LED lights, and put them in a grow tent and grew those. So one of the things I did learn is I think we got tomatoes a little bit earlier. I think we started getting fruit a little bit earlier because I've talked to other people and their plants aren't fruiting yet. But as far as producing fruit year-round, I don't know if those lights really do enough to do that for tomatoes and broccoli and stuff. I'll have to try it again this fall and winter. But I would say the greenhouse is a big success, and being that we're getting up into the 90s rather often, the plants seem to do okay. This morning when I came in here, the temperature, it's 91 degrees in here right now. The temperature was 108. However, it wasn't quite 100 over here on this side that's covered in the shade cloth because the fans hadn't turned on. But while I was in here and supporting the plants, it did actually hit 100. The fans came on, it cooled it off real quickly. But down here at the bottom, it's in the mid to upper 80s. So even in the summer, in Georgia, North Georgia, we're in growing zone 7. The greenhouse is working. So far it looks like it's going to be a 3-season greenhouse. One other thing with the greenhouse is I do have drip irrigation. It comes on at 10:30 in the morning, so it actually helps to cool the plants. As far as the tomato plants, the one thing that I would have to say that you have to watch the most is being able to support these plants. It might be that I just didn't harden them enough with wind when I was growing them, but these things are growing faster than they can be supported. So I use tomato clips, which you can buy these things on Amazon, and you put the string inside here like this. You put the string inside of here like that, it grips the string, and then you clip it on there and hold the plant in place. So I've got strings that are tied to the cattle panels and supporting it, or here I've got the strings tied to the, got the strings actually tied off to the supports for the plastic and frost cloth later, which I'll put on both sides of the plants here. I actually had a bug that attacked all my tomato plants. It's the last Saturday in February, and it is 86 degrees. Well, 86 degrees in the greenhouse. It's in probably in the 50s outside. This is the remnants from the tomato hydroponic plants. I'm gonna clean this out, take this out. I probably will not do hydroponics this year. Anyway, right there is the aquarium thermometer that I use for the hydroponics. And how I powered everything is I use solar power. I've gone through 2 solar panels. This one here, I decided to try a flexible one, and it actually works just as good as the actual panel that I moved. I moved the panel over there to the shed, and I put this one on here because I just think it's lower profile and it bends. And I wasn't certain how it was going to work in the wintertime and the summertime, considering that the angle is different. But since it's getting a little bit of an angle at all times, it's actually, the winter use of this greenhouse has actually outperformed what I expected it to. This right here is a thermal resistor. This is what actually controls when the fans come on and off. And it's on at 100 and off at 85. So anyway, that right there, when it gets to the point where it's too hot, it'll actually kick it on. So the solar panel cable comes in here and it runs into these gauges, and these are kind of cool gauges. They are you have an input and an output. You put the source on this side, the load on this side, and it'll actually measure the current, the voltage that's being used, and everything else. Anyway, the solar panel is delivering 22 volts at this point at 3.9 watts. And then from there, that goes down to the charge controller. From this charge controller right here, it goes down to the battery. And so this is basically the load that's on the battery. And the battery is producing, right now, it's 14.46 volts is the voltage on the battery. And anyway, of course, there's no amps going through here because it's battery's fully charged. Again, there's really no amps coming out going through this because, again, the battery's fully charged, so it's not charging. And then when this thermal resistor kicks on, then from the solar charger, it goes into here, and then it goes back into here. From the solar charger, the load output comes out to here. It goes into the thermal resistor. One leg just goes straight through, and then the resistor breaks the path. And when it gets hot enough, it closes the loop, turns this on, and then this display will light up and it'll show how many watts the fans are using and how many volts the fans are using. And it's really cool. Most of the time when the sun is shining, the sun is producing enough power to cool. So these two numbers right here, the amount that the solar panel is producing and the amount that the fan is, they stay actually fairly similar. I mean, they may be off by, you know, a watt here or there or anything like that, but it seems to match pretty good. And the question was whether or not this would work in the winter, if the battery would get too cold in the winter. The battery, I just built a little place down here to kind of keep the battery. All right, so anyway, you can see the solar panel here, and when it gets bright and sunny, it actually performs a little place to sit. The solar panel works very well. Inside the greenhouse, I actually have low voltage lighting in here. So the lighting actually is just run off the transformer and the low voltage lighting circuit. So it comes on at dark, and it comes on at dusk, and it goes off about 10 o'clock at night. So the lights actually in here are powered from the house. And then I'm looking at running a circuit out here just for heating. I don't really want to invest the money in solar enough to the point where you know, I have the storage capacity and the solar capacity to heat the greenhouse. What I'm finding is that I just need to heat it at night, and so far I haven't done it at all. As you can see, that aloe vera plant is not very happy because of it. But I didn't really try to grow any vegetables or anything here in the winter time. Actually, I was too busy, really didn't do anything. These broccoli plants were left over from last year. Onions were left over from last year. These carrots were left over from last year. I harvested a couple of really nice carrots from this bed here, but these are still too small to harvest. And I just planted that lettuce plant right there. And you can see I had too many carrot plants over here, so I moved them over here and spread them out. And you can see they're starting to recover and grow again. But as far as winter growing or anything like that, I really did not plan ahead, really did not plan anything, really did not even try it at all. Now, one thing I am going to do this season, which I did not do last season, is I am going to actually fertilize the soil. And I think that's one thing that I messed up with last year, is that I put new bags of soil in there, but I thought, okay, well, I've got new bags of soil, you know, they should be fine. But I never did any fertilization whatsoever. So this year, about every 2 weeks, I'm going to put down some fish fertilizer. This is Alaska. This is what they recommend. You put like 2 tablespoons inside of a gallon of water and mix it in there and pour it in there. And I did it, and within 1 week, these onion stems just really jumped up. And that lettuce plant grew quite a bit. I don't know if it was just because it decided it was time to grow, or if it was because it needed some fertilization. I also got some earthworm castings that I will sprinkle on the soil every once in a while. And I also got some organic blood meal, which I will treat the beds before I plant this year. So anyway, since I'm actually since I actually have decided to fertilize or learned to fertilize, we'll see how well things are going. But anyway, the greenhouse has been a fun project. It's nice and warm to work in when it's cold outside. When it's real windy and everything, you kind of feel a little bit of a breeze, but it definitely keeps you out of the elements. When it keeps you out of the elements. But anyway, until next update, I'll put out another video when I've actually planted things in here. And